is going on? AFC East Roundtable Sports. It's the Jets Roundtable. We got Mr. Matt O'Leary, Mr. Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7, the Talking Jets panel. They've been killing it. They've been, week 2, week 3 into all their brand new shows. Jake Gasman's over there in Indianapolis covering the NFL Combine, so he will not be joining us today. But we're going to give you guys all the latest news, and I feel like we should have named this one the Jets Drama Roundtable, because the Jets can't get out of their own ways, and we're talking about stuff not related to the football field anymore. People calling people out with no shirts on podcasts, and then we got former Jets players coming out. I mean, when will it end? But it's all good. We're going to break it all down. Matt, how you doing, bro? We missed you last week. How you feeling, more importantly?
I'm like 90% of the way there. This has been like I don't know. I haven't been this sick since I had COVID like 3 years ago. So your boy was down bad for a few days, but we've been sitting around like 75 and 90% for the last 3 days. So this might be my new norm. Maybe this is just how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. I've come to accept that, but I am so excited to be back. I missed you guys last week. And of course, now we have a ton of drama to get into.
Yeah, right. What a perfect week to be sick, honestly. I mean, like, because if you weren't sick, the Jets would have made you sick anyway. So we are happy to have you back. And thank you for, even coming on today, because we know you're not 100%. Ryan, how about you, man? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. We got baby number 2 is not like taking a bottle right now. So it's been a lot of like my wife having to wake up in the middle of the night, and when she's at work, no baby food and baby's not eating. So like driving us a little bonkers.
Dad mode.
Oh, dad mode's driving me not as bonkers as these Jets, but
hey, it's true. Hey, I mean, listen, I'm about to enter uncle mode. My sister's in 8 months right now.
Wow.
So she's
Congrats.
entering the last month, and she's due in April. So your boy's about to be an uncle. I mean, it's not a father. I'm right. I can't compare, but like, listen, I'll have a little person around. Don't know if it's a boy or girl yet. She's not letting us know. But we are live on the Jets Roundtable. So let's get into some Jets talk, because there's a lot to go along, right? We got some NFL Combine. We got Mecole, Hardman. I mean, I don't even know what I want to start off with. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many things. You know what I want to start off with? Because I want to get both of your thoughts. This was earlier in the week with Dion Dawkins, okay? What kind of nonsense did we hear from Dion Dawkins? He goes on Vlad TV with the shirt off and starts saying all this craziness about how much he hates the Jets. I love that he hates the Jets, because that tells you that we are getting underneath his skin, first of all. So, Matt, I want to get your thoughts. What was your reaction to what the Buffalo Bills left tackle had to say about the New York Jets defense and the overall perspective of how much he hates the New York Jets?
Yeah, I do like that the Jets are on his mind in February, and that he obviously has some hate for the Jets. But honestly, my biggest takeaway, and like I know some of the players had their reactions on social media, and it was funny. Like, I enjoyed reading the tweets about I'm going to pop my shirt off and go on a podcast and all that great stuff. But truly, the only way to get him to shut up is to beat the Bills on the field. And, they split with Buffalo the last 2 years, but Buffalo's kind of run the division for the last few years. So if the New York Jets are able to win a division and beat Buffalo twice, that's really the best way, I think, to get this to stop and get respect. But that's a lot easier said than done. I hope it's something they could do in 2024, but winning on the football field is the next step now for the New York Jets. The whole social media stuff is fun in the offseason, but really these things get decided on the field.
It does get decided on the field, and I feel like the rivalry between the Jets and the Bills just leveled up an extra notch, because this type of talk, there's going to be more buzz even around the fan base. I feel like now, Bills fans are like, what do you mean? What Dion Dawkins was saying was right. And the Jets fans are like, what? You kidding me? So we're already butting heads a little bit. So the tension is rising here. Ryan, what was your reaction to what you heard from Dawkins?
Yeah, the guy's an absolute clown. Talk about a dude that like tackled Clemens after a play was over, and like that's how the whole thing started. But he's saying, "Oh, 72, I'm not even gonna say his name, is immature," or whatever he was saying on the podcast. It's like, dude, like you started the whole thing. What the hell are you even talking about? So I'm not gonna take any I'm not gonna let it take up too much of my mental renting space in my head. I'm gonna let this one kind of go, because honestly, like Matt said, the best way to shut them up is to just beat them. And I want to sweep them next year. It would be absolutely nice to put him in his place. Maybe he gets driven backwards a few yards by a Quinnen Williams or some of our other D linemen. Done with this guy.
Well, he likes Quinnen. Don't worry. Quinnen is the guy. Yeah. Quinnen's this guy. Right. Quinnen's your guy. Right. Quinnen's your guy. Guys, hit the like button right now and let us know your thoughts in the comment section of what you heard from Deion Dawkins. If there's any Buffalo Bills fans in the chat, let me know your perspectives of it. And of course, shout out to everybody tuning into the chat. Don't forget to simply hit that like button, folks. We're live on the Jets Roundtable. This show is live every single Thursday at 1 p.m. EST. And we're excited to continue this show all throughout the offseason. We're going to get into a lot of NFL draft combines talk and more NFL draft stuff, of course, with free agency on the way. Definitely want to get Matt and Ryan's thoughts about all things related to the New York Jets as well as the chat. So don't forget, guys, to hit that like button right now. I do want to get the drama just out of the way so we can dive deep into what really matters. But Mecole Hardman, right when you think the Deion Dawkins things was bad, okay, Mecole Hardman goes on. And I wanted to tweet this out, but I just didn't get the time to. Like, tell me if you guys agree with this. If Mecole Hardman didn't happen to be the guy that Andy Reid schemed up on that game-winning touchdown, if he decided that to be Rashee Rice or any other receiver to run that little motion in and out, and Hardman was not the one to catch the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, would this guy be on media tour? Would this guy be like in every single podcast and every single interview and like be interviewed after the game? He wouldn't be. He would be an afterthought. He would not be on the Ryan Clark podcast right now. So I find that hilarious that the only thing he did for the Chiefs in that Super Bowl, he had that deep, 80-yard catch, and then he had that one touchdown. And now this guy's like, oh, he's like on the same level as Travis Kelce. Like, this should be Rashee Rice you should be talking to in the media because he's actually a stud for that Chiefs offense. I just thought that was interesting. And I even thought that before he came out there and slandered the New York Jets and said what he said. So now that's behind me. The speculation is that he might have tampered, right? He apparently said on the podcast, he exposed himself that he reached out to Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs GM, come and get me. Tampering. Can't do that. And then we thought that was bad. He's leaking the offensive game plan out of spite to the Chiefs and the Eagles. I mean, that is a absolute hit on his character. The guy's a free agent. I don't know if this is all alleged. We don't know if this is all confirmed, but Connor Hughes of SNY is talking about it, which makes you really feel like it's a possibility. So, Matt, this is a mess right now, and we got to talk about it. Like, what's your overall thoughts about this entire Hardman situation?
It's wild to me, right? Like, to be clearly upset, right, that you lost out on the punt returner job to the undrafted free agent rookie, right? Like, that's definitely part of it because he mentioned on the podcast as well, he didn't want to return punts in week 4. And to be that checked out, to leak a report, or not report, a game plan to the Chiefs, your former team, and then the Eagles a couple weeks later, scumbag move. I kind of buy it because why? Like, what benefit would Sauce and Kenny Yeboah have to just make that up, right? Like, what's the benefit of just saying that to say it? So, I think there's legs to this, and for Hardman, like, get ready to learn CFL, bud, because I don't think you're going to get another job in the NFL after this. Like, why is some team going to bring in a wide receiver 5 for maybe $1 million that has a history now of getting disgruntled and throwing his team under the bus? So I think he hurt himself more than anything.
Yeah, like he's acting like he's under contract and he's like locked up long-term and has multi-million-dollar deals. Like, you don't. Okay, you don't. Ryan, your overall thoughts about what's going on with the whole Mecole Hardman situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the NFL should give him a lifetime ban. I think if he's trying to fix games or rig games when the NFL's trying to have all these gambling sponsorships, if Calvin Ridley cannot bet on the NFL and get a year suspension, Mecole Hardman should get at least that. And I would argue the lifetime ban is absolutely justified here. I don't think there's any reason for him to be leaking game plans for another team. I mean, there's tons of money on the line for the NFL. I think it'd be silly to let him continue doing this. When he gets disgruntled, he's just going to go out and start sending game plans to opposing teams. Now, the whole, obviously the connections with the Eagles, he's from Georgia, and all the Eagle Georgia players are there, so he's sending them to his buddies over that way. And then obviously the Chiefs game, the speculation is, he wanted to go back there, wanted to hurt the Jets because I think they targeted him 3 times in the time that he was with the Jets. And then, like, even throughout the course of his Chiefs career, like this season, he really didn't do anything. His best game was 77 yards, the final game of the season, when they were playing a Herbertless Chargers team, and he had 2 drops on top of it. So it's not like he even had like a great game. And then obviously you had the fumble that went out the end zone in the playoffs that almost cost the Chiefs the opportunity at a Super Bowl. Nice. And then in the Super Bowl just had, he caught a pass and then was schemed open. Like that could have gone to anyone else, like you said, Richie. So I'm totally done with Hardman. I hope he gets a lifetime ban.
Lifetime ban. I mean, if you are actually, if they like investigate this and it's true, you are right. This is big. This is completely compromising the integrity of the game of football. So it went from just him talking bad about things, and then, obviously he's frustrated. That's okay. But then this is happening. And the funny thing about this, we would not know about this situation with Mecole Hardman potentially leaking the game plans unless he didn't go on that podcast and start trashing on the Jets players, because that's what made Sauce and Kenny Yeboah be like, oh, you're talking bad about our Jets? We have a little dirty laundry on you that we are not afraid to expose a little bit. So it's kind of interesting how stuff like that, for me, it kind of opens up things even more. Not even just with the Jets, but the NFL. How much stuff like that's happening that we just don't know about. Because we would not know about this speculation if Hardman did not go on that podcast and, trash on the Jets.
Yeah, it's something that we see with a lot of walks of life. And growing up, both my parents were police officers. And then one of the things was like, oh, you always protect one of your own or something along those lines. And we've heard it over the last bunch of years. And I feel like the players union is probably similar to that. Like, I don't think Sauce and Yeboah go out of their way to air out this dirty laundry on Hardman if Hardman didn't rag on the New York Jets. And I've had people, reach out and say like, well, why wasn't this brought up months ago? It's entirely possible the Jets didn't know and the players heard about it through hearsay, and they're just keeping it internal because of that like brotherly code that they have with one another. I don't know if that's actually why it wasn't brought up or if the Jets do have something. I think it's probably going to be something that's going to be hard to prove.
Yeah, it is going to be hard to prove. And I think that's the next thing I wanted to say, that like this is all alleged. It's all speculation. We don't know what's true or not. Like, Matt, do you think, is this something that the NFL is going to investigate and like really dig deep into, or is this something that we're just going to pass over and it's just like off-season drama? We're not going to really see any allegations come out about it.
I definitely think they should. I think, like as we said, I don't think the Jets bring that up against Hardman for no reason, right? Like, I think they should at minimum look into it. I'm not saying that it's a guarantee that the Jets are going to get draft compensation or Hardman gets a ban or whatever, but I mean, I think it's worth doing some sort of internal investigation and see what comes out of it. But I think to just sweep it under the rug would be naive. I don't think they should do that.
I don't know. They do that. They do all the like helping of the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you see how many holding penalties Mahomes has had over the course of his like Super Bowl runs compared to the other teams that he's played? It's like insane. It's like a totally lopsided number. I wish I had it at the tip of my fingers right now, but it was like they're clearly favored right now. And I'm sure that this is even before the Taylor Swift stuff came about too. It's like they are the new Patriots. That's the dynasty the NFL's pushing.
And hopefully that will happen with the New York Jets soon, right? Well, imagine that. We get the benefit of the doubt and we get all these things. All right, all the drama stuff, throw it out. We just had to get that junk out of the way. It's like my least favorite thing to talk about, but as we all, us three know, we cover this team, so everything linked to the Jets, we got to talk about it regardless of the situation. So let's talk about some real good things. How about that? Shout out to everybody tuning in right now on Twitter. Shout out to everybody tuning in on YouTube. This is the Jets Roundtable. If you're not familiar with this show, we're live every single Thursday at 1 p.m. EST with myself, Ryan, Jets Talk 24/7, Matt O'Leary, and usually Jake Asman, but he's over there at Indianapolis covering the NFL Combine, which is something I wanted to bring up with you guys. There's a lot of buzz around the New York Jets. We heard from Joe Douglas yesterday, and he basically confirmed Zach Wilson is, talking with people. His agent is open to trading him. Now, that wasn't really breaking Jets news. I think that was more breaking NFL news, because I don't think any Jets fan was like, whoa, what? That was more like an NFL fan like, oh, wow, it's happening. Like that's what I thought was funny. I'm like, why is this such groundbreaking news? But it is, because it's validation. It's Joe Douglas, the GM, confirming it. So, Matt, what was your thoughts about what Joe Douglas had to say about Zach Wilson, and where do you feel like the Jets can get back in return from him if they can even find a partner to trade him to?
Yeah, it's not going to be a lot, right? Like, I think any Zach Wilson trade value is just about gone. It doesn't help when your owner comes out and says we didn't have a backup quarterback. Thank you, Woody Johnson, for that one. I again, none of us were surprised that the Jets are going to look to trade him. I think it's the right thing for both sides here. I think the Jets would be wise to move on and get a better backup quarterback. And I think for Zach Wilson, if he has any shot of salvaging his career, it would not be with the New York Jets. It'd be somewhere else. I'm thinking a pick swap. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy like Zach in a 6th for a 5, something like that. The Jets don't have a 5th round pick, so maybe they want to move up, but they don't have a 5th, so it's not like you could do Zach Wilson in a 5 for a 4. It's not going to be a lot, and some fans are going to be like, "Oh, well, they just gave up on Zach Wilson and they just moved him to move him." I don't think him being on the 2024 roster does any side well, so I think it's just best to move on.
How about you, Ryan? What was your reaction to what JD had to say and your overall perspectives of where Zach Wilson could end up?
Yeah, it's not surprising at all, but I don't know. I guess I was holding out hope a little bit, towards the end of the season, maybe the last quarter of the season. So I was like, oh, well, maybe, Zach can sort of right the ship. And then there was all the rumors of like, oh, he didn't want to go back in and play. And he, the Athletic article comes out. And I feel like a lot of that stuff was probably factual. And it's just, the Jets being super ticked off about it. I think Zach just has to be traded. And if he's not going to be traded, he has to be released. The best part for the Jets and Zach is just to be separate from one another. Unfortunately, if we make a trade, the Jets are probably going to have to eat the roster bonus that he's due. So the Jets will only wind up saving about $1 million in a trade. Or at least that's what I'm thinking, unless we have multiple teams that want him and one is willing to eat the roster bonus of $5 million or $4 million, I think is what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hopefully you send him to a team like Denver or Minnesota or something along those lines. Maybe you trade Zach to Denver and in some type of additional pick swap, like maybe Denver comes up to 10, Zach gets dealt to Denver. I don't know, just something stupid like that. Jets get Sutton or I don't know. But I would like to see him not on the Jets. Well, I don't think he's going to be on the Jets next year, realistically.
Yeah, it really just confirms more of what Jets fans already assume. So Zach Wilson is the next man to be a failure for the New York Jets at the top of the NFL draft. We'll see who's next. Hopefully no one. JT, member for 3 months. Tampering and leaking game plans. The NFL better investigate this. The Jets' tweets are alarming for the trust on this. Yes, JT, definitely interesting. He also sends in a super chat, JT. Thank you so much. He got beat up by a rookie and got salty. It is true. Xavier Gibson stole the man's job. Thomas Morstead came out there and defended the New York Jets, which was great. Great to see that. And shout out to Xavier Gibson. I'm sure he's probably sitting there like, damn, I stole this guy's job. And like, I'm kind of the reason for all this. Like, okay, I'm a dog, right? Like Xavier Gibson. Keep it up, baby. Keep it up. Appreciate the super chat, JT. Really do appreciate that. Now, other things that Joe Douglas spoke on was Bryce Huff. And I feel like right now there's growing optimism amongst Jets fans that there is a realistic possibility of bringing back Bryce Huff just because of, what we're seeing and all the rumors and speculation. Now, what we do know is we're not giving him the franchise tag. He confirmed that. And then we're hearing rumors about the market value of 12 to 14 mil, but on the open market, I think it's going to be a little bit more than that, especially if there's teams bidding for him. So, Matt, as of right now, as of today, what's your level of optimism of the New York Jets finding a way to keep Bryce Huff and giving him a long-term extension?
It's not very high, unfortunately. I would love for it to be high. I'm team keep Bryce Huff, but I just think if you read the tea leaves, it feels like he wants a spot where he's going to get more playing time. And for whatever reason, the Jets just seem to view him as this rotational piece or someone who's going to play at most 40% of the snaps. I think personally that's a mistake. I think you could handle playing 50 to 55% of snaps. And with the salary cap going up, and supposedly Bryce Huff's market value isn't as high as what it was once anticipated to be, I think the Jets absolutely should keep him. But if I had to bet on it, I think he's more likely to test the market and go somewhere else. But if the reports from Connor Hughes that he's only going to get 12 to 14 million a year are more accurate, then to me, there's really no excuse for the Jets not to bring him back. I just don't know how much I buy that. I think someone's going to pay him. So we'll see. I really want New York to bring him back. I think it would be wise for the Jets to do that in a win now window, but I think he hits the market and leaves.
Yeah, that's unfortunately what I've been wrapping my head around recently as well. And all stars are aligning to that. And I don't know how many times did Bryce Huff say, I'm not taking a hometown discount. Like, I'm hitting the open market and I'm going somewhere where they're going to pay me the most. So Ryan, I'm assuming you agree with Matt, but I kind of want to flip a question to you and kind of ask you, say hypothetically Bryce Huff does walk and he does get extended elsewhere. I feel like we're not talking about the edge position as a potential need in the offseason, because with Bryce Huff walking and Carl Lawson not returning because he's a free agent, yes, we have Will McDonald to step in, but I feel like we need another player there or two. I don't want the Jets to go all in and get someone big time because we have Jermaine Johnson still, we have JFM, we have Will McDonald. But is there anybody you feel like the Jets would bring in to kind of help replace Bryce Huff with this edge position, whether it's a low-price free agent, maybe it's a late-round pick in the draft. Hopefully it's not another premier pick, right? Because we got Will McDonald. So what do you think about the future of the edge rush position if hypothetically Huff does walk?
I think the Jets would plan to fill it with someone. I don't think it's going to be a draft pick. I think it'll be someone who's a little more ready, someone that might be a little longer in the tooth, that's looking for, Super Bowl hunting, and they want to, come to a team that looks like they might be in contention with that. As far as like the Huff contract and things of that nature, I find it very hard to believe that it's going to be $12 to $14 million. That just doesn't pass the sniff test to me. I mentioned it before. Hassan Reddick in 2021, compared to Bryce Huff stats, he had 100 more snaps than Bryce Huff. Reddick, 22 hurries. Huff, 45 hurries. So doubled his hurries. Hits, Reddick had 7. Huff had 12. Sacks, Reddick did beat him. He had 15, where Huff had 10. Pressures, 67 for Huff versus 44 for Reddick. Now, Reddick signed a 3-year, $45 million deal, $15 million a year. The cap has gone up 20% since that contract was signed. So you would, in theory, think that that type of contract would also go up 20%, which would put him around that $18 to $20 million a year range, I think, which is where a lot of us were sort of penciling him in. So I think the 12 to 14 is probably something that the Jets are hoping to get him back for. That feels like the number they would want to pay him, not what he's actually going to fetch on the open market. To me, with us not using the franchise tag on him, my hope is that there's a salary cap type move that is happening, and that's why we're not doing it. So if you were to franchise tag him, you at least, could try to wheel and deal him, but you lose that money off the salary cap immediately. Joe Douglas alluded to the idea of trade, free agency, and the draft as fixing our offensive line. There's 2 guys in particular that we should be looking at for offensive line: Cam Robinson from Jacksonville and Garrett Bowles from Denver. Both guys, major salary cap cut potential for those 2 teams, with them being over the salary cap. If I'm the Jets and I need to utilize the space that was saved by not franchise tagging Huff, I'm going to both those teams and I'm offering a mid-round pick to try and get their left tackle. So I'm heading into free agency saying I'm going all my money in on Mike Evans.
Look at that, Ryan, the GM. I feel like that's a perfect segue into the topic about Lincoln Tomlinson being released, because that kind of shakes up the offensive line. That's another move that a lot of Jets fans expected, right? That frees up $8 million. But what it does do is it leaves 2 offensive linemen right now in the Jets that we feel comfortable starting. And I would like to add that they're 2 studs. They happen to be studs. One of them not being able to stay healthy in Elijah Vera-Tucker. The other one, Joe Tippmann, coming off a phenomenal rookie season, playing at center and right guard. Both of them proved to be versatile, but now there's 3 gaping holes on this offensive line. I'm not going to pencil in Carter Warren as a starter or Max Mitchell. I like them both as backups, but I feel like Warren does have upside as just a guy that can learn, but I do not want him to be a starter personally. So where do you guys see this offensive line? I know that you guys had your Talking Jets offensive line projections each individually. So I'm curious, like, obviously, Ryan, you mentioned there's trade candidates that we need to talk about in terms of this, but I feel like it's so hard, and this is with every team, every single offseason, it's so hard for me to look at mock drafts without knowing what we do in free agency, because that's going to answer every single question about what the Jets are doing at number 10, whether they're heavily going in on whatever tackle's available, whether it's Fashanu, Fuaga, trading up for Joe Alt, maybe even trading back for another tackle. Who knows? So, Matt, what's your mindset on this offensive line? How do you think Joe Douglas is going to approach it? Because we know that he is going to go all in to fix this thing, and add a lot of players.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously they cut Lincoln Tomlinson, so that means you need 3 starters on the offensive line, which I was a fan of that move. I think it was the right decision to move on from Lincoln Tomlinson. No one's denying that he's a nice, he's a nice guy and that he's healthy and available. That all that's great, but unfortunately, just didn't play up to that contract and was a below average starter. So I think it was it makes sense to move on and try to upgrade it. I think when it's all said and done, right, like you have to decide where Elijah Vera Tucker is going to play, whether it's guard or tackle. And I know it scares some Jet fans, but I do think he ends up at right tackle. I don't really think there's a correlation between where his Achilles popped, whether it was on at guard or tackle. Maybe you can make the case for the tricep and extending, but moral of the story, I think it's something that he can handle. He was played tackle well. And then for Tippmann, kind of the same thing. You got to make a decision if he's a center or a guard. I think because of his size, he could actually maybe be a better guard than he could be a center. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Jets wanted to go the veteran route at center rather than have a young center in there with Aaron Rodgers. So in free agency, I think I'm looking at the interior market, Tyler Biadasz and Graham Glasgow, two guys who are free agents that I really like a lot. Plug Biadasz in at center, Glasgow in at guard, and then you fill the final tackle spot in the NFL draft. I think Olu Fashanu is going to be there for the Jets at pick 10. So he was my pick. So my line from left to right was Fashanu, Glasgow, Biadasz, Tippmann, and Vera Tucker. But really, there's so many ways for Joe Douglas to go about this. I think we'll have a better idea what the line's going to look like after free agency. And it'll give us a little bit of a hint of what the Jets could do then in the NFL draft.
Yeah, that's definitely a very interesting approach to the offensive line. And if you guys didn't hear what Matt's offensive line is, here it is. This is Mr. Matt O'Leary's. And I know this is a great graphic from the Talking Jets YouTube channel. Now, you guys go check out Talking Jets, Jets fans. If you don't know about them, they have shows daily at this point. And these two guys are the hosts, plus Green Bean and a lot of other talent. So go check out the Talking Jets show. So this is Matt O'Leary's dream offensive line. He just broke it down. Let us know in the chat right now, guys. What do you think about this potential starting five at the offensive line position for the New York Jets? Now, Ryan, you had yours too. That's Beans. That's the chats. This is Ryan's. So why don't you break down for us why and how you got to this conclusion?
So for me, I feel like you got to get a veteran offensive tackle to protect Rodgers' blind side. And you can't just gamble on, hoping that Alter Fashanu is going to be there at number 10, because if you wind up signing someone that's, better at right tackle, then you wind up drafting someone who's a right tackle, then you get this weird pinch point kind of problem. But for me, Cam Robinson, really high pass blocking grade. Could you get him in a trade, some sort of mid-round pick? I think that would be a really good option. It doesn't even necessarily have to just be him. I really just want a veteran option on the left tackle side because, like you mentioned, Richie, Carter Warren, I think, has a lot of upside, and I would like to give him the opportunity to possibly develop and maybe, earn some starting reps at some point in the future there. As far as left guard, Vera Tucker, I would like to keep him at guard because in my mind, that tells me that the interior or the offensive line overall has a really good amount of depth because we don't have to put him at tackle. That's more my concern with him moving out that way. It's not so much the injury like Matt alluded to. I'm not concerned like he is. I'm equally as unconcerned, just like Matt is equally as unconcerned with the injury stuff. So I would have Vera Tucker at left guard, move him back to where he was when he came into the league. Tippmann, for me, I listed my backups on like the actual stream of this, and I have McGovern coming back for the New York Jets. So I can honestly see McGovern being penciled in as our center. I would like to keep Tippmann there. I understand going with a veteran center route, like Matt said as well. I think that makes a lot of sense with what Rodgers wanted to do last year with McGovern at center and not have Tippmann there. So Tippmann could wind up being right guard as well. I like Zeitler. 34 years old, I think, has played over 1,000 snaps in like 9 of the last 10 seasons, with the only exception being a 991 snap season. I would like to bring him in, draft like a Zach Zinter to let him sit behind him in like the 4th round, 3rd round, 4th round, whatever it is, and then allow him to develop. And then obviously the number 10 overall pick, assuming it's going to be Talise Funga or JC Latham or something like that. That's where I would go. Now, if you get a Fashanu or an Alt, it's great. Maybe you keep him on the right-hand side for a little bit and then you kick him over to the left. But I definitely like the veteran route, left tackle. I could understand a veteran in the center. But definitely the strength of the free agent period is going to be that interior offensive line.
Wow, look at that. 2 completely different offensive line projections. That just tells you how many possibilities there are with this offensive line. And I don't even know. I'm trying to think of what I would want. And this is like my brain's spinning with the amount of options that we have. Now I do like the idea of keeping. Now, I love the versatility of Vera Tucker and Tippmann, but I would rather both of them be at their homes. And I get it with Tippmann at center, where like he may be more custom to be a right guard and he's bigger and he actually looked really darn good at right guard. But I feel like I just want, maybe this is just me being selfish as a Jets fan, I just want to find our new Nick Mangold and have him at center and let him be there forever and let him develop and let him learn and let him be that long-term staple of that center position. And also AVT started off his Jets career at left guard. That's his most natural position. And like, I'm not really concerned about the injuries. I'm someone that kind of wants to find AVT his home that he can just be natural in and he's like has his biggest upside. But at the same time, if they don't find offensive tackles in the offseason, then you got to plug in AVT at tackle. So that's kind of where I'm at. Now with the guys around him, definitely one of the tackles needs to be a rookie at that 10 spot, in my opinion. And then you have a laundry list of free agents and a laundry list of potential trades for the New York Jets in the trade market. There's a lot of guys in the later rounds that I like in the interior offensive line as well. I like Cooper Beebe. How do you say that last name? Beebe. Cooper Beebe. That's my guy in the draft that I like in the mid rounds. Definitely expecting the Jets to be aggressive, maybe trading back potentially to recuperate more assets because the Jets don't really have as much assets as Jets fans are used to having, which is why trading down is definitely a favorite in the Jets fan base. So I do want to get deeper into the draft and talk about the NFL Draft Combine. But before we do that, we're going to hear a quick word from the proud sponsor of Roundtable Sports. You guys know them very, very well. It's BetUS, baby. BetUS Sportsbook. You guys can receive a 125% sign-up bonus when you click the link down below in the chat. I'll also pin it at the top of the chat. And you will get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,500 by using code JOIN125 and up to 10% gamblers insurance. Now, we're going to go into BetUS's website and really break down some of their NFL draft props because they have quite a few. Now, the interesting one is, correct me if I'm wrong, do the Jets hold the final pick of the draft right now?
They do.
They do. We can bet on it, baby. Final pick of the draft, is it an offensive player or defensive player? I think that's an interesting prop, or kicker or punter. And then there's another one. Mr. Irrelevant's player position. So we can predict what position are the, and I know this trade, the Jets can easily trade this pick. Like, it's not guaranteed that they're going to keep this. They can be packaged in that Zach Wilson trade, for example. They package their 7th, they move up to the 6th or something like that. But Mr. Irrelevant's player position, I think this is a very intriguing, fun type of prop. Are the Jets going quarterback with Mr. Irrelevant to find the new Brock Purdy? Come on now. Tell me they are, Ryan.
I don't think so. I would say the early picks are going to be geared towards offense, and I would say the late round picks might be geared a little more towards the defensive side of things. So at this point in time, I'd probably just pencil in defensive player or punter. Not that I think we're drafting a punter, but I think it could be like, a defensive tackle or maybe a late round cornerback that could wind up being a special teams guy that could replace Justin Hardy in the future. I think that's more along the lines of where we'll go with those picks.
Well, defensive lineman is at plus 500. So that's the second most likely scenario. Matt, what's your gut tell you? Hypothetically, the Jets keep that Mr. Irrelevant pick. Where are they going?
I was going to say defensive line would be my little sprinkle plus 500 on interior defensive lineman being the last pick, because that's sneaky a need, right? For this Jets team, they don't really have a ton of depth behind Quinnen Williams currently, unless they bring back some of the guys. And again, we'll see after free agency. But yeah, I think I like that defensive line edge spot for the last pick. I think that's the route I would go.
Now, hear me out. I know that the Jets just did this, so I've recency biased. But I like tight end at plus 1,200. We did Zach Kuntz, right? In the 7th round. Was that last year or whatever? Maybe at the tight end. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what's more likely at the back end of the draft.
To your point, Richie, you said Kuntz. The year before that, we got Yeboah as the highest paid undrafted free agent as well. So we looked towards him at that point in time.
Don't forget,
and I don't think we had
moment.
a 7th round pick in that draft either, if I'm not mistaken.
And we would have drafted Yeboah if we had one. That's for sure. And shout out to Yeboah. So I'm going to sprinkle some cash on that plus 1,200. If you guys don't know how the odds work, you put $10 on that, you'll win $120. You put $100 on it, you'll win $1,200 if the last pick in the NFL draft is a tight end. at plus 1,200 odds. Definitely go consider signing up for BetUS today, guys. If you did not already, the link is at the top of the chat. You open up the account, you get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits, not just your first 3. So we're going to hear a quick word from BetUS and then get deeper into the chat.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Where the game begins. Shout out BetUS. We appreciate you as always. Now, let's get deeper into some more draft talk, because I want to talk about, I mean, I guess this isn't really draft talk, but it is at the same time. I want to talk about the quarterback position with the Jets. The quarterback position. Okay, so I am slowly finding a draft crush, and I want to slow down a little bit. I got to do more research before I really just fall in love with this specific prospect. I don't want to say in love, okay? I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But you guys see the New York Jets. Obviously, the most likely scenario is they bring in a high-priced backup, like a Brissett or a Minshew. If they do that, do you think the Jets, because I heard Joe Douglas say that he likes the quarterbacks in this class, so I think that Douglas is going to find a quarterback in this draft class. Do you think that, say hypothetically, the Jets land a top-tier backup, they're going to invest in a quarterback earlier in the draft than we think? Or do you think it's going to be one of those dart throws, 5th round, 7th round type of guys? Or they may not even draft a quarterback this year? Matt, starting off with you.
I think you can make a case that maybe they pass on quarterback and just go fully all in. But I think between the 3rd and the 5th round is worthy of a spot to take a swing. The Jets do have 2 4th-round picks, so maybe that if you're going to go that route, really like 7th round, you're better off waiting and finding a UDFA. I think personally, like I don't know if Tua's brother is really moving the needle for me, or who's a Hardman from Notre Dame, 2 guys who are like borderline draft picks. Like, I don't know.
Anybody in that 3rd to 4th round range that you'd be comfortable drafting?
There's a few. There's like, I don't know, because it's so hard, right? Picking a quarterback is hard in the 1st round, and beyond that, it gets that much more challenging. So I think you kind of just latch onto some traits. But Michael Pratt is a name out of Tulane that I really like. He's a little bit more of a mobile quarterback. Spencer Rattler is interesting because he was someone that was projected as one of the higher quarterbacks that, you know, maybe due to some immaturities and some on the field play, dropped a little bit over the years, but sit him in the right situation. You know, the talent is there that he was once considered a high end prospect. So I think those 2, and maybe throw in Jordan Travis, would be names that I would consider.
So I asked you that on purpose to see if you'd say my guy.
Did I?
You did.
It's Pratt.
It's Spencer Rattler, baby.
Oh, Rattler. Okay.
And you just broke it down perfectly, Matt. I don't know. There's something about him that he has all the intangibles. He has that talent. And like the first reaction we all had about him, like he was on that Quarterback One show, and like he's been kind of known amongst the NFL fan base, and he kind of got lost. And I feel like he, for me, a guy to learn behind Aaron Rodgers is the perfect type of prospect, because he has all the physical talent, but he has all these other things that needs to be figured out, where it's perfect for him to sit and learn. Like, that's a guy you don't draft and start. That is a guy you draft and you let him sit behind Aaron Rodgers and learn for the long term. I mean, I've been getting lost in this guy's film and like reading up on him and like seeing his, you know, pros and cons and just weighing him as an overall prospect. And like, the more I see him, the more I'm like, yes, let him sit behind Aaron. Now, the big thing is it's going to be probably like, if you really want to draft Rattler, I would think it would maybe be a 3rd round pick, because I don't know if he gets into the 4th. It's possible, but I feel like, you know, throughout the draft process, I don't know if he's going to start moving up draft boards. I think there is a possibility there, depending on how he does in his interviews and the combine, the pro day, all that stuff. But Ryan, your thoughts of Spencer Rattler? I know that you like other quarterbacks around that type of range as well, but what's your thoughts about him individually?
Yeah, I like Rattler. I would be down with the Jets getting him. That 4th round is definitely where I'm kind of penciled in for a quarterback. I don't particularly want to use one in the 3rd round because, and I don't know if I see Douglas and Salas spending a 3rd round pick on a quarterback, just because this is the year they need to actually win to get another year or get a new contract with the New York Jets. So using a pick on a player that you're not planning to see the field the entire season is probably a little questionable. I'd also argue, Douglas at his season end press conference said if there was one thing he could change at the beginning part of the season, it was that he carried an extra offensive lineman, which means you got to figure out a roster spot for that extra offensive lineman. And if I'm the New York Jets, I'm probably looking to carry 2 quarterbacks next year, one being the backup quarterback that you bring in as a veteran, and then whatever quarterback you take in the draft, because I would like to take one, I would like it to be some sort of situation where you can either stash this guy on the practice squad or maybe someone like a Jordan Travis who's coming off an injury that you could stash on the IR for a year and he won't get poached, but he's still around Aaron Rodgers. So I don't particularly want to use up the roster spot, but if you had to, it's totally fine. I like Pratt a lot. I like Rattler a lot. I don't love Jordan Travis as a prospect. He's just more of a name that's interesting because of that IR capability. I would say as a high-end dart throw late round, if you wanted to go with like a Joe Milton, he may wind up being an undrafted free agent. He's got some wild traits to him, but he's just like, he did not look good at the Senior Bowl. He's a raw prospect. But as far as like sky high upside goes, that's an interesting one, I think.
And to throw even another curveball, we saw the Jets are interviewing the top quarterback prospects. Why?
The top 3.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and Drake May.
What's that? Cue that meme. What's his name? The NBA guy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
His name.
Yeah. I know.
Brian Windhorst or something like that. I think that's his name. But it's like, Okay. Now let's talk about this hypothetical. Because we got to go into this offseason expecting the unexpected. And I think the biggest unexpected blockbuster move would be this. The Jets trading up for the top quarterback. Now, no one's thinking that as a possibility because why would we do that? We're in a win-now mode with Aaron Rodgers. And listen, this is all hypothetical. I'm not saying I'm backing it. I'm just bringing us into a new world here of hypothetical. But is there a world that it makes sense that the Jets are so infatuated and they fell in love with one of these top 3 prospects that they package everything that they possibly can to move up, to get that guy, to be the guy to sit behind Aaron? Because it's definitely an interesting conversation because I love the idea of just having a guy for the future because we don't have that right now. And we're such in a short-term mindset and it scares the living crap out of me that we're going to be with Aaron Rodgers for 2 years and then he's gone and then we're just in quarterback purgatory for the next 10 years. So, like, is there anything that report makes you raise your eyebrow and thinking of the possibility of Joe Douglas being super aggressive, trading up, getting a top quarterback to sit and do the Patrick Mahomes route or another, quarterback route where he sits behind Aaron even as a top prospect, learn behind Aaron, and he's the guy? Or do you think it's just going to be way too expensive, and you rather use those assets to go win with Aaron Rodgers right now? Because that's the balance. That's why I don't want to do it, honestly. It's like we have Aaron for only 2 years. You got to use those assets to build around him, and that was the big issue when the Packers drafted Jordan Love. They're like, why are you drafting Love when you have Aaron in your prime? Are we going to do that all over again? So definitely interesting conversations to have. Matt, definitely unlikely, but what's your thoughts of that hypothetical?
I don't think it happens for all the reasons that you just laid out, right? Like, because they have this unique opportunity with Aaron Rodgers and they have major holes. Like, if they had a wide receiver room completely filled out and if they had an offensive line that was all set, maybe I'd feel really different about it. But the fact of the matter is they're going to need that 10th pick to be an impact guy for 2024. Not someone who you could sit for a couple of years and then eventually take over. So I'm not a fan of that plan. To me, that's half in, half out. You got to choose one or the other. And I don't think half measures is the way to go.
What if their approach is like, yeah, Rodgers committed to 3 years. Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre for 3 years. Love sat behind Rodgers for 3 years. What if the Jets go all in, land Drake May, hypothetically, or Xavier Daniels or Caleb, and Rodgers is here for 3 years, and that guy sits behind him for 3 years, and we're having another Jordan Love on our hands. Ryan, your thoughts about that hypothetical?
Well, so I can tell you right now, the Jets are interviewing these quarterbacks because they will be making a move in the first round, and it will involve a major quarterback in the first round. It's just not going to be for the Jets to select that quarterback. I think what's happening is the Jets are doing their reconnaissance, especially with all the teams that are behind them. The Vikings, the Broncos, the Raiders that might be looking to come up for a quarterback, or even some recon into the Patriots who may end up selecting someone like a Caleb Williams or a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels. at number 3. Try to figure out just what this guy is all made of, because you're going to get far more intimate interview time now than you will once this guy is actually selected by your division rival. So I think it's a little bit of gamesmanship where the Jets may want to move down from that number 10 pick and stay within like the top 14, 15 picks. See if there's interest from a Raiders. Like, how serious are they about going all the way up? Are they looking at maybe just coming up to number 10? Same thing with some of these other comments and teams that are in there. I also think that just speaking with Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jaden Daniels, maybe it tips them off a little bit as to what to expect from the teams in front of them. Like, maybe there's a situation where the Falcons are looking to come up and make a trade, and the Patriots are coming back down. And now that they're no longer in the top 3, maybe they're thinking offensive line at number 8, and the Jets have to really figure out their plan, because now you might lose an offensive tackle to 5 to the Chargers, to 7 to the Titans, to 8 to the Patriots, and then now all of a sudden you're looking at OT4 in a really weird spot. So I think it's more about reconnaissance and the potential of moving down in the draft as opposed to moving up in the draft for a quarterback right now, because I agree with Matt. I don't want to go with a quarterback in the first round, because I think it has to be an impact player for this year.
Yeah, definitely very unlikely, but I think that's an interesting point you brought up, that it's more gamemanship than anything. I think that's very realistic. So thanks for educating me on that possibility, Mr. Ryan, as usual. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button. We got over 140 people watching right now. We appreciate all the support in the chat. Right now, hit that like button. Let's freaking go. And we got some fake news in the chat. No fake news allowed.
Oh.
Boo. I need a Shadow Realm or something. I got a Shadow Realm that. We had someone last night in the AFC's roundtable like, breaking, Aaron Rodgers considering retirement per Adam Schefter. I'm like, he kept saying it over and over. I'm like, why do people like just spreading misinformation? You know what I mean?
I dropped the moderator hammer on him. Sorry, booted. You putting fake news in there? Yeah, I don't care.
Oh,
you
it's
don't have to
happening
be
right now. What do you do, Ryan? Hide user on this channel, put user in timeout, you remove it.
Oh, I had one person fired up at me the other day on our Talking Jets channel. I was just like, the guy was just like mouthing off in the chat. I was like, hey, you don't have to be here if you don't like what's going on. Boom, ban.
Nice.
Banned.
The ban hammer.
For life.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So long.
Sayonara. That is the that's what happens when you spread false information. Sorry about that, man. It's you learned from your mistake, right? It happens. It happens. Sayonara. Goodbye. All right. Let's get into some other stuff regarding these New York Jets, because there's a lot to talk about. I don't know. Where do we want to go now? Free agency? I think free agency is a good topic because that's coming up. So the Jets with their cap space situations and the wide receiver position. No, you know what? We're going back to the draft because there's one specific prospect.
Ooh.
I'm all over the place right now. There's one prospect I want to get your guys' thoughts about that has been linked to the Jets all of a sudden at number 10. That is, the more I think about it, the more Joe Douglas-y than I actually think, I want to admit. That's Brock Bowers.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Douglas loves playmakers. Playmakers, baby! Woo! That's what he said when we got Bryce Hall. As much as you want to make this guy an offensive line guy, which he is, for some reason he's infatuated by playmakers. And the only way you can convince me that Bowers can go at number 10 is if we absolutely stack up this offensive line in free agency and trade market, where I see the starting 5 on paper before the NFL draft. Because if that's not the case, we can't take Bowers. So, Matt, your reaction if the Jets actually land Brock Bowers and pair him up with Aaron Rodgers, and our top 2 weapons are Garrett Wilson and Bowers, and then whoever other receiver that we bring in, your reaction?
I think it'd be a lot of fun, right? I am not dismissive of that idea just because it's a tight end. Today's game is just get as many weapons as humanly possible. I would be nervous about the offensive line, though. Not going to lie. It's going to be dependent on what they do in free agency. Signing 2 tackles is going to be tough, but if they go Ryan's route, trading for Cam Robinson, maybe signing a Mike Onwenu, someone like that, and then a lower, middle tier guard, then okay, now we're cooking a little bit. Maybe they can go into it and take best player available, and that happens to be Brock Bowers. Then I would be for it at that point. I don't think it's the most likely. I think if you were putting odds on it, it would be offensive tackle would be significantly the highest, as it should be right now, but they would have to get aggressive and creative in free agency and trades in order to do that, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like if that's their plan, then they're going to start being aggressive right when free agency opens, and we're kind of maybe even see it a little bit, like heading into the draft. We're like, all right, guys, Brock's our guy. Let's hopefully he's available. So what's your thoughts about that, Ryan, of Brock Bowers? A lot of buzz around the Jets right now.
Yeah, about a month and a half, almost 2 months ago now, I put together a top 5 players to watch for at number 10, and Brock Bowers was on that list. I'm a big Brock Bowers fan. I would be surprised if we wound up making that pick just because of the needs we're going to have on that offensive line. So like you guys alluded to, I'd have to feel confident going into the draft. Like, to me, if you're looking at a weapon at number 10, which I think it's very likely we're doing, we reportedly had Michael Myers, not Michael Myers. What's his name? The tight end.
Mayer.
What was it?
Mayer.
Michael Mayer. The tight end from Notre Dame last year was, I'm talking about the Halloween guy. But we had Mayer on our draft board, apparently just below Will McDonald for the number 15 pick last year. So I think it makes perfect sense, especially when you consider the Jets were rumored to want Jahmyr Gibbs as well. So I think they are looking for an electric playmaker, and Bowers would absolutely fit that bill. This guy is so fast. And it's almost like this weird hybrid of a position too, because you're saying this guy can block in line and this guy can be an elite weapon in the receiving game. So you're kind of getting a weapon and you're kind of getting a blocker as well. So I like that route. I think you can kill 2 birds with one stone with one draft pick. And you can make the argument that an offensive lineman at number 10 is going to take time to develop because they don't have the practice time that they did 10 years ago when they redid the CBA. So I could see it. I really could. As far as people who say you can't take tight end in the top 10, I say it's risky because of the evaluation process, not because of the position. If you could tell me you knew exactly what Gronkowski was going to be, or Travis Kelce, or Kittle, or Laporta, any one of those guys would have been worthy of a top 10 selection if you knew what they were going to hit on. The problem is the evaluation process and hitting on the evaluation process of that tight end. So I think it's highly possible, but I think you probably are penciling in AVT as one of your tackles in order to achieve that type of situation.
Yeah. I mean, the more I think about it, the more, and that's like the flashy, that's like what fans want. Like, right. The offensive lineman's always boring, but even though real football fans know that that's the most important situation there. But just learning about Joe Douglas throughout the years, the more I've learned that, like, I'm expecting him to go offensive line and he doesn't. He goes playmaker, like, more often than not. Like, he loves his playmakers. He really, really does. And I feel like, again, the only opportunity that the Jets have of getting Bowers, if they get creative in the free agency and the draft process, the free agency and the trade process to build out that offensive line heading into the NFL draft. Because the idea of Aaron Rodgers with a young rookie tight end that has this much upside in Bowers, who would be an immediate impact on a cheap contract with a guy like Garrett Wilson, who knows who else will get in free agency for the wide receiver position. I don't know, man. The more I'm thinking about that, the more I really, really, really want it to happen. But we shall see. Mike the Stat Guy with a $5 super chat. Smith, AVT, Tippmann, Haynes, Fuaga, no matter what. Go through each one for plan B. If they get injured, it works. Matt, what's your thoughts of Mike the Stat Guy's hypothetical offensive line?
It's pretty solid. I would probably like another veteran guard to be signed. And Smith, Tyron Smith, when he's healthy, is phenomenal. He's one of the best offensive linemen in the sport. He has not played a full season since 2015, which is a really long time ago now. So they better have a very good backup plan, because best case scenario, you're getting 13 games out of him. So you got to figure out another plan for at least 4 or 5, maybe more.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I like this line. I'm a fan of, like I said earlier, I like the veteran offensive tackle route for left tackle. Tyron Smith, I do think, is probably more likely to stay in Dallas at this point in his career. But if we could, get him to shake free, you sign him for like a $10 or $12 million deal, I'd be on board with that. As far as AVT at left guard, that's where I would like to see him. Tippmann, I do want to see him at guard, honestly. And you brought it up, Richie, like wanting to have your staple at center and everything like that. I'm fine with it. There were some weird snaps from Tippmann last year that I didn't particularly love, and Rodgers does like getting snaps from a veteran. So maybe there's a situation where like McGovern is our starting center, and then Tippmann is the guard, and then you have that positional flexibility between McGovern, Tippmann, and Wes Schweitzer that can play guard or center. I like Haynes. I'm a fan of Haynes. Like Matt, I don't want to necessarily start a rookie at guard if you can avoid it with how good the interior offensive line class is in free agency. And Fuaga at number 10, I think, is a home run.
Yeah, definitely an interesting offensive line. I would be on board, but there are some questions. I mean, there's going to be some questions no matter what type of offensive line group you bring in. Got to weigh the pros and the cons. We shall see. Do you guys have any thoughts of them drafting the center from Oregon, JPJ? Like, do you guys see that as a possibility, the trade down option and drafting him and sliding Tippmann to right guard? Because I feel like there's some Jets fans that want to see that happen.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. I think the Jets do want to trade down, and I think it's maybe a fallback plan in the event tackle doesn't fall the way they want. Like, let's say they trade down to number 15 or 16, and Fuaga and Latham are both gone. Then I could see the situation where they're like, okay, hey, JPJ, you're coming in. You're going to be our new center. Tippmann, you're going to be a guard. AVT, you're kicking out to tackle. And so that's where I think you might be able to make some things kind of happen. I don't think we learn AVT's position until after everything is all said and done and we know where all the chips have fallen, and then he'll get slotted into the right spot then.
Interesting. Jimmy from Seattle's tuning in. What's good, Jimmy? Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Guys, this has been the Jets Roundtable. Don't forget to subscribe to the AFC's Roundtable. We also got a draft roundtable show on Roundtable Sports, which is hosted by our friend here, Ryan, Jets Talk 24/7, and Colby from Patriots Global. They're going to be coming out with some content talking about the NFL Combine. So definitely stay tuned for that. We got a lot of things coming your way here on this channel. Of course, don't forget to check out the Talking Jets YouTube channel as well. They got so many shows, which has been really fun to be tuning into. Mr. Matt O'Leary, always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Anything you'd like to say before we get out of here?
I'm excited to be back. I love talking Jets with you guys. If you want more Jets content, I'm going on Talking Jets live at 3 o'clock. And so just a little bit, talking with Jeremy, Jets Chaos, about some exciting New York Jets topics. So if you want more Jets, go over there.
Nice. The Talking Jets, baby. Ryan?
Yeah, off-season stuff, rumors, speculation, mock drafts, all that good stuff. If you want more Jet content, Jets Talk 24/7, as well as Talking Jets on Mondays from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. I break down the Jets draft situation, the prospects we're looking at, some of the rumors surrounding the draft with our very own Dom C.
Great stuff there. Definitely go check out what they're doing. We appreciate all the support, folks. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way out. We'll see you next week on the Jets Roundtable at Thursday, 1 p.m. EST. See ya.